Hi, Florette here with Ink on 3. Thanks for joining me. We're going to do some really easy no-line coloring, and I'm going to show you a really fun technique. But first off, I want to talk about the fade out ink that we're going to be using, and it's really important to start with a really clean stamp. So as you see, I used our ink off stamp cleaner, cleaned off the stamp before using it, wiped it off with the ink off cloth, and then I just dabbed my hand on it to make sure that it was dry. And then you can see this is the color of the fade out ink. It's a very, very pale color, but it's not just a light colored ink. It's a very different formulation and a very different color. It's not a brown, it's not a gray, it's actually completely neutral, and it has a variety of colors in it so that it is great for using with warm colors or cool colors. One of the other things I wanted to mention about fade out ink is when I'm watercoloring with it, I like to stamp it, and I don't need to wait for it to dry. I don't need to heat set it. I can start watercoloring right away. And what's going to happen then is when I lay that lightest color on the line, that line of the fade out is going to grab the color that I put on top. So you can see here, I've just put a little of the Atelier ink onto a tile, and I'm using it as a palette. I dip into it with my paintbrush, and my paintbrush is very almost dry. It's just barely moist. And that way I'll have more control with my color. But you'll notice as I go over the lines, the fade out ink is grabbing those lines and starting the coloring process for me. So I'm just tracing over the lines, but what I like to do to really give it a lot of dimension and give it that soft, beautiful look where you have highlights and lowlights is I will trace over parts of the line, and you'll see that I did that in the beginning. And then as I go up, I'll leave a space and then come back and go over the empty spaces with a lighter color of the ink. And that's going to give me these really light and dark areas. And it's going to give it a really, really pretty soft look. You'll see me doing this a lot. I'll just take some clean, clear water and blend the color out, getting that nice gradation of color. So now I'm going to grab some Maryland Red and do the balloon. And you're going to see I'm going to start out by tracing just the bottom edge of the balloon, pulling up a little of the color upward and then using the lightest color. Then I'm going to do one curved arc and then another. But you'll see I leave a lot of the sections of the heart open. And as we color it in and pull the color with the clean clear water, we're going to get that gradation, and then the sections that we left open will start to fill in with the lightest color of the ink just by using clean clear water and pulling the color around, because now you can see we actually already have a lot of dimension going on. Then after I did this section, I realized I did not do the little hand of the little raccoon. So I grab a little of the blue and just color that in nice and easily. You could almost stop right there. It looks really, really cute. But I want to add some deeper, darker tones. So in order to do that, I like to dry it first with my heat gun before I start layering the colors, because then the colors are just going to get deeper and deeper as I go along. So I take some Twiggy Brown though and decide to color in just the string of the balloon before I move forward. Now as I'm doing this, and I don't think I talked about it, is that my brush is barely wet. It's just very, very moist. You want to have very little water on your brush. It's going to give you a lot more control. It's not going to flood your image, and it's not going to bleed your colors out. And you'll notice after I put on a layer of color in the deeper area, I'm going to clean my brush off, get some clean clear water, and then I'm going to blend just the edge like we did with the balloon, the edge of the color into the white. And then we're leaving a lot of nice white space. And by going around the edges and going inward like we've been doing, that's a great way to keep that white space, because trust me, it's real easy to fill that in, and we're all trying to get that beautiful white space because it gives you that nice highlighted look in some areas and the deep dark shadows in others. Using the same peacock blue to get the lightest colors, and now you're going to see me get a really deep tone. And how I'm getting that really dark tone is I took my brush and I basically dried it off. This brush is just almost dry. It just has a very, very little amount of water on it, and it's going to give you so much control when you use it that way. You'll notice I don't have any water in the actual brush pen, and that also gives you more control. This is a great brush because the tip of this brush is so tiny and it keeps its shape that it works great for doing these really small images. Now, if I was doing a really large image where I don't need quite as much control, then I might put the water in the water brush pen. Of course, you can use any paintbrush. I always recommend one that has a very fine tip that keeps its shape. And that's really what you want when you're doing these little tiny images. So as we're going along, you can see I'm adding more and more shadow in the little areas on the lower side, and you can see how much dimension I'm getting and how that little image is really coming to life. Of course, like I said before, you could stop when it's a really light image. That looks really pretty too. And especially if you're a beginner, if you're not comfortable with those deep dark shadows yet, you can work your way towards that. It looks great either way. Now, I love those really deep dark shadows, so I love just building it up as I go along. Again, I wanted to mention, once you put that darker area in, when you want to blend it out, you're not going to go all the way to the back of the color. You're going to go just to the edge where it starts to meet the lighter color, and you're going to pull that in. And that's how you keep that deep dark color. You're not going to pull it all the way out. You're just going to go from the edge where it meets, the light meets the dark, and pull it into your image. And you're going to have all this beautiful dimension by doing it this way. Now, I probably could have stopped a little while ago. I kind of start fiddling around with it here and there and adding just teeny tiny bits more, but really I could have stopped way before that. But now let's finish the balloon. So I want to get some deep dark tones. So you'll see again, I'm starting at the bottom of the balloon, adding my color, then taking some clean clear water and just blending the edge of the color into the white. And you can see I'm getting this beautiful rounded look. Now I'm going to do again around those sections that we did the first time and start blending in some more color. So you can see I'm just building it up and building it up as I go along. Then you'll see that I actually pulled some of that lighter color around the edge to finish off that balloon shape. And now I'm just shadowing in on some of the sides. You can dab off. If you go outside of your lines, you can get some clean clear water and almost use it like an eraser. You'll put the water there and then dab it off if you go outside your lines, and it magically will come off. And that's what's so great, again, how forgiving this ink is. Now, if while you're coloring, you're noticing anything starts to get fuzzy, don't worry about it. As it dries, everything will start to smooth out. It can always look worse before it looks better. Another thing that I always say is a good idea is if you feel like you're getting frustrated or you feel like things aren't turning out quite right, step away from it for a little bit, let it dry, come back later, and usually you'll come back and be like, hey, that's not that bad, or that's really cute. We're all our own worst critic, that's for sure. That's what I was doing right here. I was being very critical of myself, and I start fiddling with it and trying more and more, but I really could have stopped right where I was. The good thing about Atelier ink is that it is very forgiving, and it did allow me to continue to fiddle with it without pilling my paper, without messing anything up, because the ink is just very, very forgiving. I do like that I added a little more shadow on that little hand there, but I really could have stopped earlier. So finally I decide I think I'm good, and I dry it because now I want to add a little liquid pixie dust. So I cut it out, and now I'm going to add some liquid pixie dust. Now what you'll notice about the liquid pixie dust, and that I really love, is I put a little on the tile, and now I'm painting it on, and you'll notice it's not moving all that beautiful coloring that I did. It's just gliding along the top, giving us that beautiful shimmer. I just love the shimmer. I actually try to find any way I can to use liquid pixie dust. So now that we're done with that, I'm going to do a little ink blending. But look at these markers on my Picket Fence Studio brushes. These are Make It by Marko, and I will have the link in the description below, along with the link to the brush holder. So what I love about Atelier is I can use it for so many different things. So you can see I'm going to get some beautiful color on here. So it's going to look like purple paper. Atelier actually means artist workshop. So this ink really is a workhorse. You can do just about everything with it. I'm going to make a full card here. So I decided, why not make a couple of backgrounds while we're at it. I'm just going to simply take the Atelier ink. I'm going to take the My Gem Purple and the Peacock Blue and just kind of drag it on the tile. Then I'm going to grab the spritzer, and I'm just going to spritz that, and look at that ink move all over. This is just so fun. I could sit there and make card backgrounds, I think, all day. So you're just going to take your paper, drag it through, and you're going to have so much ink on there, you're going to get like, I think I wind up getting 4 backgrounds total out of this. And you're just going to smush and then keep pulling it off and then add a little more, and then I decide if I want to have a little more blue on one, I drag a little more ink on the tile, and then I'm going to dry the paper because I want that layer to go on top of the purple. And the Atelier is a semi-opaque ink, so it's great because it's not going to muddy. It's just going to layer and layer and give me all these beautiful colors. The other thing is the colors are going to stay true. You're not going to get any cloudiness. They're just going to be really bright and vibrant colors. And look at that. I've got all these great backgrounds, and I'm just going to dry them a little. I could set them aside and dry them, but I decide I'm going to just keep playing and mushing. And like there, I had felt like I wanted to take some of that ink off so you can just blot it off. But look, I've got all these great backgrounds. I could just continue on and make tons of them, but they're great because then I can just use them for later. Other thing I was going to mention is, as you probably already realized, they're very water reactive, and you can just keep layering and having fun and create all these backgrounds. So I used up pretty much all the ink. I'm just going to wipe off my tile, and oh my gosh, look at all that beautiful bright color. And you can see there's no cloudiness, there's no patina. It's just beautiful, rich color. And here's where it's water reactive. I'm just going to sprinkle some on, let it set for a second, and then pull it off. And look at all that beautiful reaction I have going on. So it's just really fun ink to play with. I can stamp with it. I can make backgrounds with it. I can watercolor with it. It really is a lot of fun. It's a workhorse. You can do just about every technique with the Atelier ink. So now we're just going to put a sentiment on. I love this stamp set because it has so many great sentiments, but with everything that's been going on and we're all quarantined and some people aren't feeling well, I thought I would use this one that says rest up and feel better soon. I thought that was perfect for this time. I'm just going to use the blackout ink. It's really black and rich, and it's waterproof. You can use it with Copic markers, but it's just really great for detailed images too. So I'm just going to grab some foam tape, and I'm going to pop it onto the little circle piece that we colored, and I decide I want to have a little more sparkle, so I'm going to use the liquid pixie dust again with a paintbrush and just put sprinkles all over it, and it's just going to give a nice glitter all over my paper to give it a little more interest. And as I was listening to this, I heard there's some sirens going on in the background. Sorry about that. But we got the liquid pixie dust on there, and I want it to dry quickly. So one of the things you can do with liquid pixie dust, if you sprinkle it on and you just want it to dry quickly, you can take like a paper towel or an ink off cloth and just dab it, and it's good to go. So I just put my foam tape on there and popped everything together. Now we're just going to glue it onto a card base with some liquid paper glue, which I will also have linked in the description. I love this glue. I like to use like a wet glue when I'm applying my card base because I give a little more time for wiggle room. And gosh, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you give no line coloring a try and play around, and I hope you and everyone in your family are safe and healthy. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll subscribe to our channel because I'll be back again with some more fun stuff. Take care.